I still remember the happiest day of my life, the day I finally became a father. After 4 long years of hope, prayers, and heartbreak, my wife Emily gave birth to twin boys. When the nurse placed the first baby in my arms, I couldn't stop crying. He looked just like me, his tiny fingers wrapped around mine, and in that moment, I felt like the luckiest man alive. Then the nurse smiled and handed me my second son. The second I looked at him, my heart stopped. He didn't look like me. He didn't even look like Emily. His skin was much darker. His eyes were different. Even his face felt unfamiliar. I hated myself for thinking such horrible thoughts about a newborn baby. But I couldn't silence the question screaming inside my head. How is this possible? Everyone around me was celebrating. Congratulations. They're beautiful. I forced myself to smile. Thank you. But inside, I was falling apart. Then I looked at Emily. Instead of smiling with relief, she looked nervous, almost afraid. Every time my eyes moved toward our second baby, she quickly looked away. That's when I realized something wasn't right. I asked the doctor, "Is it normal for twins to look this different?" He gave a calm smile. "Yes, twins can sometimes inherit different genetic traits. It's rare, but it happens." I wanted to believe him. I truly did, but my heart refused to listen. Later that evening, my younger sister Lily quietly stood beside me. She looked at both babies, then looked at me. "Are you okay?" she whispered. I forced another smile. "I'm fine." She didn't believe me. "Something feels strange," she said softly. I didn't answer. That night, while Emily slept beside our newborn sons, I sat alone, staring at their tiny faces. One looked exactly like me. The other felt like a complete mystery. And for the first time in my life, I asked myself a question that would destroy everything I thought I knew. Why did one of my sons look like a complete stranger? When we finally brought our twin boys home, everyone called them a miracle. They're adorable. Look how different they are. These are truly special miracle twins. People smiled. People laughed. But every compliment felt like another crack in my heart. I smiled back. Thank you. Inside, I was asking the same question over and over. Why do they look so different? Emily acted like nothing was wrong. Whenever someone compared the babies, she quickly changed the subject. "Let's not focus on that," she would say with a nervous smile. "They're both perfect." I wanted to agree. I really did. But something inside me refused to stay quiet. A few days later, my best friend Daniel came to visit. He picked up my first son and laughed. "Wow, he looks exactly like you." Then he gently held the second baby. For a few seconds, he said nothing. His smile faded. Finally, he looked at me. "Well, genetics can be strange." I forced a laugh. "Yeah, I guess." But even Daniel couldn't hide the confusion in his eyes. That hurt more than I wanted to admit. The next afternoon, my mother came over with homemade food. She kissed both babies and smiled with tears in her eyes. "My grandsons are beautiful." Then she looked at them again. Her smile slowly disappeared. She stayed silent for a long moment. Finally, she whispered, "I've never seen twins this different in our family." The room became completely quiet. Emily immediately stood up. "What does that mean?" My mother looked surprised. "I didn't mean anything." Emily crossed her arms. "Are you saying one of them isn't his?" "No," my mother answered quickly. "I would never say that." Emily's voice became louder. "Then stop looking at my children like that." I stepped between them. "Emily, calm down." She looked at me with angry eyes. "So now you think the same thing?" "I never said that." "You don't have to. I can see it on your face." She walked upstairs carrying the second baby. The front door slammed a few seconds later. I stood there without saying a word. Daniel quietly placed a hand on my shoulder. "She's scared." "Scared of what?" "I don't know. But something is bothering her." Those words stayed in my mind for days. Then I started noticing little things. Emily never left her phone alone. Every time it rang, she picked it up before I could even see the screen. Sometimes she walked outside before answering. Other times she locked herself inside the bedroom. Whenever I asked who was calling, her answer was always the same. "It's nothing. Just a friend. Just hospital paperwork." The excuses never stopped. Neither did the phone calls. Late one evening, I walked into the kitchen for a glass of water. Through the window, I saw Emily standing in the backyard. She was whispering into her phone. I understand. No, he doesn't know. Please don't call the house again. My heart started beating faster. Before I could step outside, she ended the call. When she came back inside, she smiled like nothing had happened. Everything okay? I asked. She nodded immediately. Of course. Who were you talking to? No one important. She kissed my cheek. I'm just tired. I wanted to believe her, but trust was becoming harder every single day. A week later, Emily left to take a shower. Her purse was lying on the couch. I wasn't trying to spy on her. I only wanted to find a receipt for baby formula. As I searched through the bag, a folded paper slipped onto the floor. I picked it up. It was an old hospital appointment. The date caught my attention immediately. It was several months before Emily became pregnant. I frowned. She had never told me about this visit. Not once. I looked at the doctor's name. I looked at the date again. Then I folded the paper with shaking hands. At that moment, I realized my wife had been hiding something long before our twins were born. And for the first time, I wasn't sure whether I was afraid of the truth or afraid that my worst fears were about to become real. Every day felt like a war inside my own heart. One side told me to trust my wife. The other whispered that something was terribly wrong. I hated those thoughts. Every time I picked up my second son, he looked at me with innocent eyes and smiled. He didn't know why I hesitated before holding him. He didn't know why I sometimes looked away. He was just a baby. And every smile made me feel like the worst father in the world. I would whisper, I'm sorry, little guy. You don't deserve my doubts. But I don't know what to believe anymore. The guilt followed me everywhere. One evening, my sister Lily came over to help with the babies. She waited until Emily went upstairs. Then she quietly sat beside me. She looked at me for a long moment before speaking. You're not sleeping, are you? I shook my head. No, I can see in your eyes. I stayed silent. Finally, she asked a question I had been avoiding. Do you still think something isn't right? I closed my eyes. I don't know. I want to trust Emily. But every day gets harder. Lily lowered her voice. Then find the truth. What do you mean? Get a DNA test. I immediately stood up. No, I can't. If I'm wrong, I'll destroy my marriage. Lily looked at me with sympathy. And if you're right? I couldn't answer. She gently placed her hand on my shoulder. The truth hurts once. Lies hurt forever. Her words stayed with me long after she left. Over the next few days, Emily became even more nervous. She kept asking strange questions. Are you upset with me? Why have you been so quiet? Did I do something wrong? Every time I forced a smile. No, I'm just tired. She tried hugging me. I hugged her back. But something between us had changed. The silence had become louder than our conversations. One afternoon, Emily took the twins upstairs for their nap. A few minutes later, she left for the grocery store. For the first time, I was completely alone with my thoughts. My heart raced. Was I really about to do this? I walked into the nursery. Both boys were sleeping peacefully. I whispered, I'm sorry. I hope one day you'll forgive me. With trembling hands, I carefully collected the DNA samples. Then I took my own sample. It only took a few minutes, but it felt like I had betrayed my entire family. I sealed everything inside the testing kit. For several minutes, I simply stared at the envelope. I almost threw it away. Maybe I didn't need answers. Maybe love should be enough. But another voice inside me whispered, what if this question never leaves you? I grabbed my keys. The drive to the post office felt endless. Every red light made me wonder if I should turn around. When I finally dropped the package into the mailbox, I stood there staring at it. There was no going back. The truth was now on its way. The waiting became torture. Every morning I checked my phone. Every afternoon I checked my email. Every evening I wondered if tomorrow would change my life forever. Emily noticed. She tried harder than ever to bring us closer. She cooked my favorite meals. She suggested movie nights. She even reached for my hand while we watched the twins sleeping. "I miss you," she whispered. I forced a smile. "I'm right here." She looked into my eyes. "No, you're somewhere else." Those words broke my heart, because she was right. Even when I was sitting beside her, my mind was trapped inside a question I couldn't escape. Days passed, then another week. The waiting felt endless. One afternoon, while I was feeding the babies, my phone suddenly rang. An unknown number appeared on the screen. For a second, I couldn't breathe. I answered. "Hello." A calm voice spoke. "Good afternoon. This is the laboratory regarding your DNA submission." My hand started shaking. "Yes. We've completed the testing." I swallowed hard. "So, what are the results?" There was a brief silence. Then the voice answered quietly. "I'm sorry, sir. We can't discuss these results over the phone." My heart nearly stopped. "What does that mean?" "We need you to come to the laboratory in person." Is something wrong?" Another pause. Then the specialist said the words that changed everything. "The results are too unusual to explain over the phone." The call ended. I slowly lowered my phone. My legs felt weak. I looked toward the nursery where my 2 sons were sleeping peacefully. Tomorrow, I was finally going to learn the truth. And deep inside, I wasn't sure my life would ever be the same again. I barely remember driving to the laboratory. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. My heart kept telling me the truth was waiting behind those doors. And I wasn't sure I was strong enough to face it. The receptionist smiled politely. "Good morning. Please have a seat." I nodded without saying much. Every minute felt like an hour. Finally, a man in a white coat stepped into the waiting room. "Mr. Carter?" I stood up. "Yes. I'm Dr. Anderson. I'm the laboratory specialist who reviewed your DNA results." He led me into a quiet office. A thick file rested on the desk. He looked at me with calm eyes. "Before we begin, I need you to understand that this is one of the rarest cases I've ever seen." My stomach tightened. I whispered, "Just tell me the truth." He slowly opened the file. "The first child," he paused, "is your biological son." I closed my eyes. A small wave of relief washed over me. Then I asked the question that had haunted me for weeks. "And the second baby?" The room became silent. Dr. Anderson looked directly at me. "He is also your biological son." I stared at him. "I'm sorry, what?" He pushed the DNA report across the table. "The results are conclusive. There is no mistake. Both twins are genetically yours." I picked up the papers. My eyes moved across the words again, and again, and again. I couldn't breathe. "No, that can't be." "It says both babies are mine." Dr. Anderson nodded. "Yes, they are." I felt my entire body grow weak. Every doubt, every accusation, every sleepless night had been built on a lie I created inside my own mind. Tears filled my eyes. I thought my wife betrayed me." He spoke gently. "I understand why you were confused. The twins have very different physical appearances, but there's a medical explanation." He turned another page inside the report. "There is evidence of an extremely rare genetic condition. It affects skin tone, facial features, and other visible traits. In rare cases, twins from the same parents can look dramatically different." I looked at the pictures inside the medical report. Families from around the world. Brothers who barely looked related. Twins with completely different appearances. Everything suddenly made sense. I lowered my head. "Oh, Emily, what have I done?" Dr. Anderson quietly handed me a tissue. "You aren't the first parent to ask these questions, but your case has another surprise." I slowly looked up. "What do you mean?" He reached into another folder. "During our review, we found additional medical records connected to your wife's pregnancy." He placed another document in front of me. My hands trembled as I opened it. The date immediately caught my attention. It was several months before Emily became pregnant. I frowned. "I've never seen these before." Dr. Anderson nodded. "According to these records, your wife secretly underwent fertility treatment." I stared at him. "What?" After several years of unsuccessful pregnancies, she believed she might never become a mother, so she sought medical help. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She never told me. Why would she hide something like this? Before I could say another word, someone gently knocked on the office door. A woman entered with another folder in her hands. Dr. Anderson smiled. "This is Ms. Sarah Bennett, our genetic counselor." She sat across from me. "I'm sorry you're going through this. I know today has been overwhelming." I nodded silently. She continued. "We reviewed every document connected to your family's case. Your wife wasn't hiding an affair. She was hiding her fear." I felt tears running down my face. She thought I would leave her. Sarah nodded. "Many couples struggle with infertility. Some patients feel ashamed. They keep treatments secret because they want to surprise their partners with good news later." I remembered every moment Emily cried after another failed pregnancy, every birthday, every anniversary, every silent prayer. She had carried that pain alone, and while she was fighting for our future, I was questioning her loyalty. The guilt crushed me. I don't deserve her. Sarah leaned forward. "Don't judge yourself too quickly. You acted on the information you had. But there's still something we don't understand." I looked at her. "What do you mean?" She opened the final folder. "There are inconsistencies in your wife's medical records." "Inconsistencies?" She nodded. "Some files appear to have been altered." Dr. Anderson added, "The fertility treatment records don't completely match the hospital database." Sarah pointed towards several highlighted pages. "Someone accessed these files multiple times, and certain information was changed." I frowned. "Changed by who?" She slowly shook her head. "We don't know, but we are certain of one thing. This wasn't an accident." I looked down at the paperwork. The DNA mystery had finally been solved. Both boys were my sons. Emily had never betrayed me. But now, a far more dangerous question stood in front of me. If my wife had been telling the truth all along, then who had been changing her medical records? And more importantly, why? I walked out of the laboratory with one answer and 100 new questions. My sons were both mine. Emily had never cheated on me. But someone had changed her medical records. I couldn't ignore that anymore. I looked at the DNA report one last time and whispered, "I promise I'll find out who did this." The next morning, I returned to the hospital. This time, I wasn't there as a husband. I was there to uncover the truth. The front desk directed me to the medical records department. After nearly an hour of waiting, a nurse walked toward me. She smiled kindly. "Mr. Carter?" "Yes." "My name is Grace. I was told you had questions about your wife's records." I nodded. "I just want the truth." Grace looked around before lowering her voice. "Follow me." She led me into a small office and quietly closed the door. "I've reviewed your wife's file," she said, "and something about it bothered me." I felt my heart race. "What did you find?" She turned her computer screen toward me. "Every time a patient's file is opened, the system records it." She pointed at the monitor. "Look at these dates." I leaned closer. Emily's records had been accessed again, and again, and again, months before our twins were born. I frowned. Why would anyone keep opening her file? Grace shook her head. They shouldn't have. Most of these accesses had no medical reason. I swallowed hard. So someone was watching her? It appears that way. She clicked another page. One name appeared over and over again. Dr. Victor Harris. I looked at Grace. "Who is he?" She sighed. "A fertility specialist. He worked with many patients struggling to have children." "Did he treat Emily?" "For a short time, but she was later transferred." "Why?" Grace hesitated. "There were concerns." "What kind of concerns?" She lowered her voice even more. "Complaints, missing records, insurance problems." But nothing was ever proven. I stared at the screen. So this doctor kept accessing Emily's file? Yes. And not just hers. Grace opened another folder. There were others. Dozens of names appeared. Families, couples, women who had received fertility treatment. Some files had strange edits. Others had missing pages. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Grace looked at me. I don't think your wife was being targeted personally. I think she became one of many victims. I whispered, victims of what? Grace answered quietly, medical fraud. The words echoed inside my head. Medical fraud. Someone had been using desperate families for money. I immediately contacted the laboratory. Dr. Anderson reviewed the information. A few hours later, he called me. You need to report this. I already have. Good. Because we found similar cases. The investigation moved faster than I expected. Within days, hospital officials began reviewing old records. Then reporters somehow learned about the story. The headlines spread everywhere. Questions raised about fertility clinic. Families demand answers. Hospital launches internal investigation. I hated seeing our lives on television. Neighbors started whispering. People stared whenever we left the house. Some still believed Emily had cheated. Others thought I was lying to protect her. The pressure became unbearable. One evening, I came home and found Emily sitting alone in the nursery. She was crying quietly while holding one of our sons. When she saw me, she wiped her tears. I'm sorry. He sat beside her. You don't have to apologize. She shook her head. Yes, I do. I should have told you everything. I gently took her hand. Tell me now. She looked down at the sleeping baby. After years of trying to have children, I started believing I was broken. Her voice trembled. Every negative pregnancy test felt like another failure. I didn't want you to see me that way. I squeezed her hand. You were never a failure. Tears rolled down her face. I was ashamed. I secretly visited the fertility clinic. I thought if the treatment worked, I could surprise you. I imagined handing you a positive pregnancy test. I wanted to see you smile. She broke into tears. But instead, I almost destroyed our marriage. I pulled her into my arms. No, we both made mistakes. I should have trusted you. She looked at me. Did you really think I betrayed you? I closed my eyes. For a while, yes. I'm ashamed to admit it. She nodded slowly. I understand. We sat together in silence. Our twins slept peacefully between us. For the first time in weeks, we weren't hiding anything from each other. But outside our home, the investigation was only beginning. And somewhere, the man responsible for destroying countless families still believed his secrets were safe. He had no idea that the truth was finally coming for him. The truth was finally coming out. But instead of bringing peace, it brought chaos. Within days, our story was everywhere. News websites, television reports, social media. People who had never met us suddenly believed they knew everything about our lives. Some called Emily a liar. Others called me a fool. Complete strangers judged our family without knowing the truth. Every time I opened my phone, there were hundreds of cruel comments. She definitely cheated. He only stayed because he's weak. Those babies deserve better parents. I finally turned my phone off, but I couldn't turn off the pain. Even walking through our neighborhood became difficult. People stopped talking when we passed. Some smiled out of pity. Others simply stared. One afternoon, I visited my parents. I hoped to find comfort. Instead, I found another battle waiting for me. My father sat quietly across from me. He looked tired. So, what's your plan? I frowned. What do you mean? He folded his hands. Are you really going to stay with Emily? I looked him straight in the eyes. Why wouldn't I? He sighed. Your marriage has become a public disaster. People are talking. They'll never stop. I shook my head. I don't care what people say. My father spoke softly. Son, sometimes walking away is easier. I stood up immediately. Easier for who? For me? For Emily? For my sons? He stayed silent. I took a deep breath. I'm not abandoning my family. Not now. Not ever. When I returned home, Emily was sitting alone in the living room. She looked exhausted. Dark circles surrounded her eyes. She barely smiled. I heard your father came by. I nodded. He thinks you should leave me." She lowered her head. I don't blame him. I walked over and held her hands. "I do." She looked at me with tears in her eyes. "You've lost so much because of me. Our peace, our happiness, your family's respect." I gently shook my head. "No, we lost those things because someone lied, not because you love me." She started crying. "I should have told you about the fertility treatments. Maybe none of this would have happened." I pulled her into a hug. "We can't change yesterday, but we can protect tomorrow." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The twins slept peacefully upstairs. Their soft cries reminded me what truly mattered. That same evening, my phone rang. The caller introduced himself. "Mr. Carter? This is Detective Mason." My heart skipped a beat. "I'm handling the investigation involving Dr. Victor Harris." I sat down immediately. "Did you find something?" "We found a lot." He paused before continuing. "We've uncovered evidence that Dr. Harris manipulated dozens of medical records." I closed my eyes. So Emily wasn't the only victim. No, there are many families involved. Some lost their savings. Some divorced. Some spent years believing lies that were created inside hospital files. Anger rushed through me. How could someone do that? Detective Mason answered quietly. Money, insurance fraud, illegal fertility billing. He destroyed lives to protect his own business. I clenched my fists. I want him to pay. He will. But we need your patience. After the call ended, I couldn't sleep. I walked outside into the cold night. The street was completely quiet. For weeks, I had dreamed about revenge. I wanted Dr. Harris to suffer the same pain he caused us. I wanted him to lose everything. But as I stood there alone, I realized something. Even if he went to prison, even if he lost his career, even if the whole world hated him, none of it would erase the nights my wife cried herself to sleep. None of it would give my sons back the peaceful beginning they deserved. Revenge couldn't heal us. Only love could. Only forgiveness could. Only choosing my family every single day could rebuild what had been broken. I went back inside. Emily was awake, sitting beside the twins' cribs. She looked at me. "Are you okay?" I smiled for the first time in weeks. "I think so." She stood up slowly. "What changed?" I walked over to our sleeping boys. I gently touched each of their tiny hands. Then I looked at Emily. I've spent weeks trying to prove who their father is. I took a deep breath. But being a father isn't about proving something. It's about showing up. It's about protecting them. It's about loving them, no matter how hard life becomes. Emily couldn't hold back her tears. I wrapped my arms around her. I don't care how difficult tomorrow will be. I don't care what people say. I don't care how long this investigation takes. I may have promised the day these boys were born. And today, I'm making another one. I looked at my wife, then at my sons. No matter what happens next, I will protect this family. Always. Months passed. For the first time in a long while, our home felt peaceful. The twins were growing stronger every day. Their laughter filled the rooms that had once been filled with silence. But one chapter of our lives still wasn't over. Then one morning, my phone rang. It was Detective Mason. "Mr. Carter, we've arrested Dr. Victor Harris." I closed my eyes. After everything, the day had finally come. "When is the trial?" "Next week. And we'll need your family there." I looked at Emily. She was standing across the room, holding one of our sons. When I told her the news, she didn't smile. She simply whispered, "It's finally over." I gently shook my head. No. Now the truth begins. The courthouse was packed. News cameras covered every entrance. Families from different cities had gathered. Some looked angry. Others looked heartbroken. Every face carried the weight of betrayal. Inside the courtroom, I saw people I had never met. But somehow, their pain felt familiar. One by one, victims stood before the judge. A young husband spoke first. "We lost our marriage because of fake medical records." An older woman followed. "I spent my life savings on treatments that were never properly documented. Another father wiped away tears. My children grew up believing lies. Every story sounded different, yet every story led back to the same man, Dr. Victor Harris. When he entered the courtroom, he looked nothing like the confident doctor people once trusted. His head stayed down. His hands trembled. For the first time, he looked afraid. The prosecutor stood before the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, this case is not simply about fraud. It is about stolen trust. It is about families torn apart. It is about innocent people whose lives were destroyed by deliberate deception. The courtroom became completely silent. Then Emily's name was called. My heart pounded as she slowly walked toward the witness stand. She looked nervous. Her hands shook. I quietly whispered, "You can do this." She looked back at me and nodded. The prosecutor smiled gently. "Mrs. Carter, please tell the court why you sought fertility treatment." Emily took a deep breath. "For years, my husband and I dreamed of becoming parents. But month after month, I believed my body was failing me." Her voice cracked. I was ashamed. I thought if I secretly received treatment, I could surprise my husband with good news. Tears filled her eyes. I never imagined those medical records would be used against us. The prosecutor asked softly, "Did you ever have an affair?" Emily answered without hesitation, "Never. I have loved only one man. My husband." I felt tears burning my eyes. She looked directly at me. "I'm sorry I kept my fears hidden." I quietly whispered, "I'm sorry I ever doubted you." Even from across the courtroom, she smiled through her tears. Then Daniel was called to testify. He looked uncomfortable. Before answering any questions, he turned toward me. "I owe you an apology." I frowned. "For what?" "I kept telling you genetics could explain everything. But deep inside, I had doubts too. I didn't say them out loud. But I helped your fears grow." He lowered his head. "I'm sorry." I walked over after his testimony ended. I hugged him. We both made mistakes. What matters is that we're here now. A few minutes later, Lily took the witness stand. She looked at me with watery eyes. "I never wanted to hurt your marriage. I only wanted to protect my brother." She wiped away a tear. "When I told you to get the DNA test, I thought I was helping. I didn't realize how much pain it would cause." I smiled gently. "You were trying to protect me." "I know, and I love you for that." Finally, the court called its last expert witness. A genetic specialist walked confidently toward the stand. The prosecutor held up the DNA report. "Can you confirm these findings?" The specialist nodded. "Yes. Both children are biologically related to Mr. Carter. There is no scientific doubt. The differences in physical appearance are explained by an extremely rare genetic condition." The courtroom fell completely silent. Even the reporters stopped typing. Every rumor, every accusation, every cruel comment collapsed in a single moment. The judge looked toward Dr. Harris. "So while this family suffered, your actions helped create confusion around their medical records." Dr. Harris remained silent. He had no defense left, only shame. Weeks later, the verdict was announced. Guilty on every major charge. As the courtroom emptied, Emily slipped her hand into mine. "We made it." I smiled. "No." "We survived it." Outside the courthouse, our families stood waiting. My mother hugged Emily tightly. "I'm sorry for ever questioning you." Emily smiled through tears. "I forgive you." My father placed a hand on my shoulder. "You fought for your family. I'm proud of you." For the first time in what felt like forever, there were no more lies, no more secrets, no more fear, only truth, only healing, only family. And as I looked at my wife, then at my two beautiful sons, I realized something priceless. Justice hadn't just punished the guilty. It had finally given my family the chance to begin again. 1 year later, I stood in our backyard, watching my twin boys chase each other across the grass. Their laughter filled the air. It was loud, pure, carefree. They had no idea how close our family had come to falling apart. To them, I was simply Dad. And that was the greatest gift life had ever given me. I smiled as one of them ran toward me. "Daddy." He wrapped his tiny arms around my leg. A second later, his brother joined him. "Catch us." I laughed. "You're both too fast for me." Emily stepped onto the porch carrying a birthday cake. She smiled the same smile that made me fall in love with her years ago. "Don't wear yourselves out. The party starts soon." I walked over and kissed her forehead. "Need any help?" She smiled. "Just stay with the boys. They've been waiting all morning to play with you." I looked into her eyes. There were no more secrets between us. No more silent fears. No more unanswered questions. Only honesty. Only trust. Only love. I quietly whispered, "I'm sorry for everything." Emily gently held my hand. "We promised each other something." I nodded. "No more living in the past." She smiled. "We survived it together." Our marriage hadn't become stronger because life was easy. It became stronger because we finally learned to tell each other the truth, even when the truth was painful. A few minutes later, Lily walked to the front gate, carrying brightly wrapped presents. The boys screamed with excitement. "Aunt Lily!" They ran straight into her arms. She laughed. "Slow down. I only have 2 hands." I couldn't help smiling. For months, Lily had blamed herself for encouraging the DNA test. But today, all I saw was a loving aunt who adored my sons. She walked over to me. "They're getting big." "They really are." She smiled. "And they look happy." I looked toward my boys. "They are, because they know they're loved." Daniel arrived a few minutes later with balloons in one hand and pizza boxes in the other. He grinned. I figured kids love pizza more than fancy food. I laughed. "You figured right." He looked at me. "Still friends?" I pulled him into a hug. "Always." People make mistakes. Real friends admit them. That's exactly what Daniel had done. Later that afternoon, my parents arrived. My mother hugged Emily tightly. I still thank God every day that our family stayed together. Emily smiled. "So do I." Even my father had changed. He knelt beside the twins and handed each of them a small toy truck. "I've been waiting all week to give you these." Watching him laugh with his grandsons reminded me how much healing had happened during the past year. Not just for me, for all of us. That evening, after everyone had gone home, I walked into my office. I slowly opened the top drawer of my desk. Inside was a DNA report, the same report that had once terrified me. I picked it up. For a long moment, I simply stared at it. There was a time when those papers represented fear, doubt, anger. Now, they represented something completely different. A lesson. I quietly folded the report and placed it back inside the drawer, not because I wanted to forget, but because I wanted to remember. Appearances can fool us, fear can blind us, and suspicion can destroy the people we love most. At that moment, my phone buzzed with a news update. Dr. Victor Harris had officially begun serving his prison sentence. Several more families had come forward. More victims. More broken lives. Justice had finally reached him. I looked out the window. The sunset painted the sky with soft orange light. For the first time, I felt nothing toward him. No anger, no hatred, no desire for revenge. His punishment belonged to the law. My future belonged to my family. I quietly walked back outside. Emily was sitting on a blanket in the backyard. The twins had fallen asleep against her shoulders after an afternoon of playing. She looked at me and smiled. They wore themselves out. I laughed softly. They had the best birthday ever. She reached for my hand. So did I. I sat beside her and gently lifted one of our sleeping boys into my arms. Then I held the other. Looking at their peaceful faces, I realized something that changed my heart forever. A father is measured by matching eyes, or matching skin, or matching smiles. A father is measured by every bedtime story, every comforting hug, every sacrifice, every promise he keeps. Love, not appearance, creates a family. I kissed both of my sons on their foreheads. Then I looked at Emily. "Thank you." She smiled. "For what?" "For never giving up on us." Tears filled her eyes. We never stopped choosing each other. I nodded, and we never will. As the stars slowly appeared above us, I thought about everything we had survived. The fear, the lies, the guilt, the courtroom, the tears. Every painful moment had led us here, to peace, to forgiveness, to a family stronger than ever before. If someone asked me today what the DNA test changed, I would give them a different answer than they expected. The DNA test didn't prove who my children were. It proved who I needed to become. Not a man controlled by fear, not a husband trapped by suspicion, but a father who chose love over pride, a husband who chose trust over doubt, and a man who finally understood that real family is built with honesty, forgiveness, and unconditional love. The DNA test had left everyone silent, but it wasn't science that saved my family. It was the courage to face the truth, the strength to forgive, and the choice to love each other every single day. The end.